Hey guys, I'm Ezra Showell here with my co-host Reece Rowan, and we are back again with our fourth guest, Bobby Bordelon. So, Bobby, you are a journalist at Mountain Media News, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wrote an article about the podcast a couple weeks ago, Mac.
Yeah, thanks.
We were looking at that before the podcast started. So, the first thing I just want to know is, you're a journalist. So, what does a journalist do?
Well, a lot of what I do is try to cover local government and local, like people that are doing things that are kind of impact the rest of the community. So like a big focus of mine is trying to get to basically as many city council meetings and commission meetings as possible. Because as boring as they can be, they are like the kind of the place where for lack of a better word, power brokers kind of gather.
Right.
And so that's a good place to get started. Another thing that I like to do is try to keep up with what's going on in courts. For me, an important thing. This might be jumping into the weeds all of a sudden, but one of the important things that I found when I first started out was there's always been a lot of coverage of when people do something that get arrested, but there's never a lot of courthouse coverage.
Right.
Yeah. And that's kind of a thing that I put on as a priority for myself. So.
Are you exclusive for that, or?
Not. I wouldn't say I'm exclusive for that. I do in terms of the other papers that I read. I do find that I'm usually the one doing that, but it's not because I have some kind of exclusive right to do it. It's just it's just kind of
you're born and you're like, I'm gonna cover this.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Shout out to Mary in the courthouse because I call her every morning and ask, "What are y'all doing today?"
Yeah.
And it's so that's a lot of the big push that I do. I try to, I don't know, just interview interesting people and, try to put some stories in the limelight, I guess.
Right. So, how do you, or I guess just journalists in general, how do you come up with these stories? How do you, find what's interesting?
Okay, so there's a couple of different ways to do it. The quick and easy ones are someone put up a social media post, and that's kind of interesting. I'd like to know a lot more about that. So you kind of follow that rabbit hole. But the way that I like the best stories are kind of the ones where you're with a bunch of people and maybe you're all you're at the pub and there's just there's some drinks and everything's free flowing conversation and stuff, and somebody mentions one little thing offhandedly and you're like, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about that. And it's so that's kind of my favorite kind of thing to write. But those opportunities are not obviously, for the last little while, haven't been quite as bountiful.
Yeah, that's fair.
But those tend to be the most fun things to work on.
Yeah. How'd you get into journalism?
So I graduated from Marshall University with a bachelor's in psychology, and it was immensely helpful to my immediate career. I worked in traffic control in New Orleans immediately afterward, which is directly related to psychology. It was a very successful transition over. But after doing that for a couple of years, I was like, wow, I really don't like working in offices. I need something better to do. So I moved back up here because I have family in the area and was like, I'm going to go to the med school.
Right.
So I got here, and then within a month, I started working at one of the local papers and was like, oh, no, this is way better.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just where I've been since.
So you just kind of stumbled into it?
Yeah, because I had done, when I was in high school, shout out to Barry Rich, because I was in the newspaper. I was on the newspaper staff there, but at the time I didn't really expect that that's what I was going to be doing. And in retrospect, I was very, very bad at it.
Yeah.
like going back and looking at it now, there was maybe 2 things that I wrote that I'm not horrified by nowadays.
Well, now you're a professional, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, doing the best.
I mean, you do it professionally for a living,
exactly.
so
Yeah.
Exactly.
But do you ever find since you do have a psychology degree, do you ever find that useful when you're doing any journalism? Have you ever been like, oh, this is...
Yeah, there's been a couple of moments where it really leans into being able to take a step back and kind of look at a situation from another, because people they have the reason why they're doing something, and then they have the reason why they're doing something, and the difference between those two things is often very subtle and can be very difficult to tell. I wouldn't necessarily say that the psych degree helped with that, but I would say that it did help me get out of my own perspective enough to see that
it must help for interviews, right?
Yeah, it does a little bit. Honestly, with interviews, as weird as this is, the thing that helped the most with that was taking a lot of literature courses while I was in college, because you would write something and give it to a class and be like, hey, here's this thing that I came up with, and everybody would hate it.
Yeah.
And so like once you've been through enough of those kind of like writing seminars, that you get kind of like, oh, okay, no, it's fine. I'm gonna go offend somebody accidentally.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm still at the point in my high school education where like when we have to go like up in front of the class and like present something, you still get nervous from it. But,
Oh yeah.
I mean, like the most extensive stuff we have to do is like a research paper or like an analysis of a book or something. So
I mean, I still find myself getting nervous, and I've done the social studies fair plenty of times. You know, I've not to brag or anything, but I've won states. Me and my best friend have,
kind of a big deal.
Yeah, so like we've been up at the top and given speeches and won, and it gets easier, but it doesn't get much easier. Public speaking is always been
Really?
hard. Yeah, it makes me immediately anxious, and I'm like, why am I so anxious? I've done this so many times. I played music in front of people, like solos. You know that. I still get nervous. So
here we are on a podcast.
I mean, it gets easier. Like a podcast, I'm not as nervous anymore.
I know. I was really nervous on our first podcast.
I was like, why? We're just speaking.
How does this work?
Yeah.
And like I've always kind of found that like this kind of a setting is much easier to do. I'm not really much of a crowd speaker. I'm also like I didn't go into TV news for a whole bunch of reasons, and one of them is that like I don't want to be on camera on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of like the theatricality and stuff that goes with that I'm not really I'm not really suited for in a way. But like there's something different about like standing in front of a crowd and just being like, hey, y'all all listen.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I've done it enough times to know I can do it, but like
yeah, and that's something I like about this setting we have, because it really is just like the three of us talking. I mean, we've got like surrounded by cameras, but I feel like when we really get into a conversation, like it really just feels like it's us.
Yeah, I don't feel like any of this is here.
Yeah,
and the cameras or microphones.
It's reassuring.
Yeah, the audience isn't real. It's fine. Don't worry. None of them exist.
Right.
The good part about it is there's no audience just here, but I mean besides your dad, but and those two over there.
Hey.
But like, there's no like audience here, like avidly just listening for us. It's just like.
It really is just us talking.
Yeah, and then it goes on somewhere else. I'm like, I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to deal with people's reaction in real time and be like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, because I know like if I ever had to do something like in public speaking, like if you weren't, especially if you weren't allowed to like just look at the paper, like what are you looking at? You're looking at everyone's faces,
Yeah.
And I feel like in those situations, the best thing you can hope for is like disinterested, especially in like school.
I mean, okay, so when we gave our first. So I did 2 projects, and they're both in psychology. So
social studies projects.
Yeah, social studies fair projects. The first one was basically bashing the entire school system. Why it wasn't optimal for our.
Okay.
There's me and my firm really like to have long titles because it's funny. So it's like a synopsis of why the school system isn't optimal for the human brain or something like that, something long. And then the judges at the state level and every other level were really interested, and I was like, please stop being interested. It's just so much easier to speak to you if you're not paying attention.
Really?
And then next year, our state's judge. We did news bias, how it affects us, and she was not paying attention. She did not care. She was like looking everywhere else, and I was like, "This kind of hurts me, but thank you, because I don't have to
Really?
like I don't have to worry about."
I feel like I have to satisfy.
Yeah.
It was like bomb performance the second time. It was like, oh, I nailed it.
We still won. So I mean,
There you go.
Just being judged in general is really uncomfortable for me. Some people like it. I don't see it.
Yeah, I was like that for a really long time. Nowadays, it's just kind of become a background noise to I don't know, life. You get you butt heads with people.
There's such a weird interaction, though.
especially if you're new to it, because like if you're new to something, you're getting judged. You're like, well, I'm looking for validation. And you
Really?
just give it to me. But like, if someone were to judge me and be like, because I play saxophone, if someone were to judge me and be like, you suck, I'd be like, okay. I mean, like I'm in a band. I'm obviously not that bad. I know.
Right.
So
Like,
like,
a lot of people don't have that confidence. Good for you.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, it's just once you get used to it, you're like, dude, I know my ability. I know I'm not the greatest by far, but I'm not bad. So
It's still
shut up.
infinitely better than that.
Yeah.
Also, okay, so we were talking a little bit about this before the podcast started, and you were with us like 3 weeks ago, whenever we recorded the last one.
Yeah.
You mentioned to us that you have a story about the KKK.
I do.
About they approached you and tried to recruit you or something like that.
I do. No. So
Let's hear it.
So it was within the first 2 or 3 months I had started at the Daily. I woke up that morning and I came into work and I walked in because I live close enough to walk, and all throughout town there was a bunch of little baggies, Ziploc baggies of white rice with notes stuck inside of them, and it was and I'm like, what is this? When the publisher came in and she was like, look at this thing that I found in my yard, and like handed it to me. So I pulled it out and I opened it and I started to read it, and it was a flyer. It was a recruitment flyer for the KKK, and they had thrown it all over Lewisburg.
Is that illegal?
I'm not sure if it's legal.
Yeah, I mean, you can probably get them for a few things.
Yeah, but so they distributed all these flyers, and of course at the next city council meeting, then Mayor John Manchester, gave a statement and like kind of denounced them, and I got my first experience of being, public speaking. I got my first experience of being mortified to be like, oh hey, yeah, they called me to da 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 da, and we like make eye contact, and my immediate first thought is like, oh, I should not have opened my mouth in the middle of the city council meeting. But the thing that ended up happening is when I looked at this flyer, I realized that there are multiple misspellings and grammatical mistakes all over it. So I get the immense pleasure of writing this article of being like, look, we had some KKK flyers come through Lewisburg and like throw stuff all over the place, and like I got to put the quotes in and like have your, and then put in sick, which is like, this is how they spelled it. What do you do? And I had a really it's just really fun because making fun of the Klan is like just one of my pastimes. I just think they're all crazy psychos. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But the interesting part is that when after that article published, I had called them like I don't remember the exact words. I think it was a terroristic organization or something like that. And I get a call from, I think it was the assistant grand wizard of the Greenbrier County Ku Klux Klan.
No way.
And I wish it is the great regret of my life that I did not record this phone conversation, because I didn't know I was about to get it. I was just sitting there in the newsroom, and I picked up the phone and I was like, hey, this is Bobby, and they're like, I'm the grand wizard, and I was like,
wait, so he just opens with that?
Yeah, no, and I was like, well, who are you? And he's like, I'm not gonna tell you that. And I'm like, all right, then what do you have to talk about? But it was a really interesting conversation. One of the things that he went out of his way to be like is, we're not the Ku Klux Klan. And I said, what do you mean you're not the Ku Klux Klan? Like I opened your flyer and I typed in the website, and in like 90s Space Jam website design, it was like, we're the Ku Klux Klan. And he goes, no, we're the loyal white knights of the Ku Klux Klan. And I just take a second and I like think about it. And I'm just like, you can see how you have a bit of a branding problem at the very least, then, right? Like it's just, you're right there. You're right there. You're like almost there. And so I asked him if he would like to do an interview. For the record, I probably would not have put it in print because I don't want to platform that kind of nonsense. But at the same time,
though.
At the same time, though, I at the very least wanted the interview in the back catalog. But the thing that really does, this is a really fun story for me to tell, but one of the things that does like worry me is, and he might have been lying, so put a pin in that, take this with a grain of salt, but he did say that they had a successful recruitment drive after that. He said that they had people that called him and joined. Admittedly, he might be lying, just to make himself feel better. But I don't really know if he is or not. Since then, I have been interested in trying to find out, but at the same time.
When was that?
That was about 3-ish years ago.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That recently.
Yeah. No.
I was imagining in my story this like the whole time. I was thinking like more than 5 years ago.
No. It was 2017, I think.
That's such like an 80s story.
I know. I never thought I'd be getting calls from the assistant grand wizard.
Really?
He might have been the assistant grand dragon. I don't know. Dragon.
Wait. How do you get your phone number again?
No, he called the Daily Office.
Right.
Yeah. No, he didn't call my cell.
Okay.
I'm very glad he doesn't have my cell.
That would be bad.
And to this day, I'm like, I have wondered like, who is this person that called me? I want to know who who I talked to.
I'm sure you could probably find out.
Yeah.
What's up with their names too? Like the Grand Wizard, Dragon Master.
So bizarre.
Dude, they're literally like racist. So like, it doesn't matter. Like they're dumb. So like the names is like, okay.
One of my favorite stories to look into, and it's not really mine to tell, but it's worth looking into, is there was a reporter that the guy that helped destroy the KKK. It was a guy that infiltrated them. And
Wait a minute.
Leaked all of their secrets to a Superman writer, and Superman Comics spent like a solid couple months just like writing the legit what the KKK's secrets are.
Whoa.
And the whole time the KKK is freaking out because they're like, how do they know all of this stuff? Somebody had just infiltrated them and sent all of their info. It's a crazy story.
You said it's Superman.
They're Superman Comics.
Oh, wait, so that's not like an expression, literally.
No, literally, there were Superman comics that ran that exposed all of the KKK's secrets.
That's great.
That's
somebody infiltrated them and leaked all of them.
That's wild.
It's a wild story. I wish I could give you a specific source to go to hear it. I think it was a Radiolab story, but I might be wrong about that. But it's a good time.
Do you know if that stuff has died down since 3 years ago?
Honestly, it's very hard to tell. I would like to think so, but at the same time, I mean, I like see examples of it all the time. You know, even as recently as last summer, like during the protest downtown, there was pushback to both the Juneteenth and the Black Lives Matter rallies downtown. Some people that didn't respond very well. I interviewed a guy that I think they were after one of the rallies, like somebody had mooned them on the way, and it was like in a way that was very like this is because of the protest. It's not like a random kid mooning. It was like specific to like in I don't know, like that's a very small example, but at the same time, you know, I don't think that stuff is gone.
It's wild. It still happens.
Yeah,
it's like I don't hear about it much. You know,
and one of the modern iterations is really and you know, is probably taking a turn for the series, but one of the modern iterations of that is definitely the you know, some things I try to you know, policy discussions and stuff. You know, I cover the legislature on a regular basis, and one of the things that I see right now is a push across the United States, but specifically from Greenbrier County, people to ban trans youth in sports.
I was about to bring that up.
Yeah, and because we had talked about it a little bit earlier, but one of the reasons why I bring this up is because of what just happened in Arkansas. So
What happened?
So here in Greenbrier County, our two delegates, Todd Longenacre and Barry Bruce, have sponsored legislation to ban or mandate a person to play with whatever gender they were assigned with at birth, regardless of any other. Okay, there's a whole bunch of scientific reasons why this is not the way that you should go. There's a whole bunch of like just personal and like, you know, like common decency reasons why this is a thing that shouldn't happen. The one that I bring up the most is the fact that, you know, if a trans man goes on testosterone and then is required to compete in a women's league.
Yeah, it's like lol.
Yeah,
you just
like
did the thing you
exactly.
do.
Like literally, there's just a long history of people that ended up in that situation that are like, this is not a thing that should be happening, guys. But part of the reason that I speak out about it is, one, this is a contentious issue that is already full of just misinformation all over the place, but particularly in light of what's going on in Arkansas, where they just so the legislature passed a ban on, I think it's all gender transition related care for anyone that's under 18.
Really?
They passed it, the governor vetoed it, and then they overrid the veto and passed it anyway. And right now you're seeing, there's a really great reporter, Caitlin Burns, if you're interested in this topic more specifically, that gives a lot of resources on all of this stuff and why a lot of these issues are not handled correctly. But the reason that I think about it is because when you look at what the current session looks like, I worry that we're going toward that direction next.
I hope not.
I hope not, but I'm not really particularly based on what I've seen right now. I mean, so far, I don't think, you know, I think it's very possible.
I have a few transgender friends, and I can't imagine growing up like that. Yeah, I don't know what they all go through. Couldn't imagine. I don't want to ever hope no one has to go through like anything like that. But because
that's part of the reason that I bring it up is specifically to say that, you know, it's not, this isn't a blanket statement against, you know, whatever political party or whatever affiliation. It's me wanting to speak out on this issue specifically because if there is a single like trans youth that like sees all of this stuff going on, they need to know that like at the very least there's some people around that know better and are like looking to speak out on their behalf. Have
you written about this in the paper?
I've written about it once or twice. The first time I really only touched on it because it hadn't left committee yet. In either last week or the week before's legislative roundup, I included a section on it that kind of went and said basically some of the same things I did just now, just to try to give a little bit more information about it. I find that covering it is very fraught because a lot of the statements that have been put out are already so charged with specific language designed to kind of like set off transphobia.
Yeah.
That like like I can almost not quote some of the stuff. And of course, they'll, people bemoan cancel culture and blah 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 blah. But like common human decency is not. Consequences and canceling are two different things, and I would rather speak up for that one kid that feels kind of lost.
Yeah, people don't realize stuff like this, how hard it affects people.
Yeah.
Like, I won't speak on too much because, I'm not transgender, but how much it like affects people and can cause them to be just uncomfortable at the bare minimum. Like it can cause people to have really serious mental health problems. It can make them worse. And I really don't want to have to see anyone experience that. It kind of makes me really angry when people do stuff like that. And it's like, you can really get over yourselves and let transgender women, transgender men be on the correct team.
And it is, of course,
that's my opinion.
Yeah, it is, of course, like part of the issue is that the people who decide that pass this sort of legislature, they're straight white old dudes.
Did they have transgender children? Have they ever even met someone transgender? Have they asked them how they feel?
They're making decisions for people who have no way of fathoming what their decisions are doing.
They make decisions for things that don't affect them.
And one of the AP stories that kind of hit at the same time that this kind of got introduced in our legislature was that an AP investigation found that I think at the time it was 20 states that had legislation relating to this. It was like not a single one of the reps that sponsored these legislations could like point to a specific high school or a specific middle school and be like, this is the case. That means that, like, because if this were a problem, this would have already been a problem you would have seen all over the place.
Definitely.
But, hormones do the things that hormones do.
Yeah.
And it's not as complicated as...
I mean, to me personally, it's not that big of a deal if, like...
Oh, so you don't care?
No, people are on the correct team that they want to be on. I mean, like, it's not that deep that people are making it to be. It's deep for the kids. That means a lot to them. Just... little victories, and they feel like they're under attack. And I mean, I would feel like I was under attack. I really can't imagine that. It gets me choked up a little bit right now.
Yeah, it's close to home.
Yeah.
But is there any legislation or stuff like that that's going on like West Virginia state level?
Well, there's a lot.
Federal even.
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now out of the legislature. There's a whole slew of last week I think our senator Jack Woodrum had sponsored, I think it was something over 20 bills that passed through the Senate. There were a lot. It's almost too many for me to list straight through. There were a couple that I thought were really good ideas. Obviously the big well, not a big one, but one that I liked is there was an award for Chuck Yeager that kind of it was like a Chuck Yeager award for somebody else for I think following in his footsteps and kind of doing that kind of service. And there's a bunch of little ones like that, big policy stuff that there's a lot. You can almost hear me like I don't even know where to begin because there's so much. And then there are a couple that I just don't feel that I have the policy chops to kind of delve into. For example, the big one that the biggest one that negotiations happening around right now is the income tax. Replacement and repeal, whichever word you decide is kind of makes more sense.
I've seen so many different things about that, six or something.
I personally feel like replacement is a better expression of what would be happening there. But at the same time, if you just cut it, then it is a repeal. But
I've seen an increase in sales tax or food tax added. And
well, one that locally was kind of worried about was the alcohol tax because we have so many local businesses that are breweries and cideries, and we have the brewing company and Hawk Knob and all kinds of Briar Garden that just opened, I think is another one that all would be massively impacted by obviously massively increased alcohol tax. But I think in Justice's most recent plan, I think they removed the alcohol increase.
I saw that one.
So that's the biggest thing going on in Charleston right now is debate over that. And of course the other big project of Senator Baldwin's that I always like to point to is the broadband expansion.
Oh, I heard about that.
Needs to happen. That needs to happen as soon as it can.
Didn't that fail?
There was a bill that was coming through that failed, but to be honest with you, I have not spent enough time with the bill to give you specifics as to why and how it failed. There was a bill in which the vote failed, and part of the thing that is this is what reporters do. Part of my my this afternoon after we leave here is I'm going to spend a bunch of time trying to figure out, you know, why did this bill fail? What is, you know, what it had done? What would have been expanded? Why did the senators vote the way that they did?
Do you have any idea of what it was like in the bill that failed?
I don't know enough about it to speak on it with confidence. So okay. I don't want to like you know, give y'all incorrect information, but I believe that it was relating to creating a specific account to deal with broadband infrastructure funds, which again I don't have enough information to kind of go into that, but at the same time,
yeah, I am like, you know, broadband's a huge issue in West Virginia. You know, like I've talked about it a lot on here. You know, my terrible internet, and there's no one. It doesn't seem like there's like anyone on the horizon coming to fix it, except for I did hear that you know, Elon Musk's Starlink program. They're probably going to be providing service to our area like mid to late 2021.
Oh, nice.
And the one with those with the satellites that they
they sent out like the dozens of mini satellites.
I have a great story about that. A couple like right as that happened, I got this text message from my dad that was just super intense, and it was like, I don't know what I just saw, but I think it's aliens. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And he sent me this video, and he was like, there are these things that just flew over my head that were all evenly spaced, and there was like 24 of them. It was a whole bunch. And I was like, and he sent me a video, and it was a pretty spooky video in that context. And then I like went online. It was like, I'm like, it's not aliens, it's Elon Musk. I was immensely disappointed. I was hoping for a proper UFO story, but
dang it.
Yeah, I know. I was very disappointed.
Just Elon Musk.
It's only Elon Musk.
Yeah, I know. My dad did tell me this one story way back. I'm probably going to tell it to you wrong, so take it with a grain of salt. But he told me this one story about this one time he I think it's the editorials where like people can like write in stuff. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think they accidentally put in a story about like, or it was like, in one way or another, it was accidentally like confirming like a UFO sighting or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was a joke or something like that. Do you know the story?
No, I don't know enough of the story to tell it completely. But
I don't either.
I do know that there were joke pages, I believe, that would run. It was kind of like, if you know what the World Weekly News is, it was like a section of the paper that kind of did that same thing. And they ran a story about UFOs being sighted over Roncevert. And then he said that like they had a whole bunch of call-ins. Oh, like, oh, I saw those too. I saw them. They were there. They were passing over.
It was just Elon Musk.
it was just Elon Musk. I think it was in the 90s. So that makes it even better. I still think it was Elon Musk.
Not SpaceX. Elon Musk himself.
No, it's just specifically Elon Musk.
He was like, watch this.
Hang on. First, I'm going to go back in time.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to set my satellites up. It's going to be great.
So going back to the state legislature thing, there's been a lot of stuff coming out about like education, you know, strictly like one thing I remember that has been big recently is them getting rid of the Promise Scholarship, and then a bunch of colleges didn't get paid for the money that they were owed for the Promise Scholarship. Do you know anything about that?
I can speak to that a little bit. I think most of the education focus of the legislature that I've been looking at is related to more of like the high school, middle school level stuff, just because it's more of what my beat is. But at the same time, from what I've seen, some of the cuts from if the income replacement, tax replacement goes through, some of the cuts it looks like are going to be to that kind of to, you know, higher education and that kind of thing. And I think it's disappointing. Part of the reason that I've been in West Virginia now for as long as I have is West Virginia gave me the opportunity to go to college. I went to Marshall on the Promise Scholarship, and you know, part of the reason why I've been here in the last little while is because one, I have kind of the best job, but number two is that, you know, West Virginia, I wanted to like give back to a West Virginia community for allowing me to do that, and I think that to keep people here, it's very like that's the focus of the legislatures. They want to try to keep people here, but most of the people that I speak to my age are very, you know, if you kind of take the whole conversation that we've had so far and kind of like squish it.
Yeah.
It's like these are the reasons
Yeah.
that like a lot of people my age don't want to stay.
Yeah, like I'm planning on. I mean, I'm gonna go to WVU, you know, just because in
Same.
state and cheaper. Yeah, I saw you got accepted.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
But like, as far as like getting a job here, like it's a beautiful state, and it's really a shame. It's like that it has a lot of the legislation that's passed that it does. But I just I don't know. I might come back here when I'm older, but I don't want to work here. You know?
That's kind of nearly. I mean, a couple of people aside, that's nearly what a lot of my friends from my graduating class, and from the plus or minus 2 years of people that I knew in high school, that's really what they all said. Is, I love it a lot, but I can't stay. I'm trying to do X, Y, Z, and it's just not here.
Yeah. And I
And
know.
I don't know if there's a good way for West Virginia to solve that. Just to be blunt about it, there's. I mean, obviously, broadband expansion would be a good.
That's a good
Yeah.
start.
step. Yeah, that's a good place to start. But really, I think that the thing that people need is not only job opportunity and all that stuff, but you need to be able to create like.
You need to give people a reason to stay.
Yeah, you need to give people not only like you need to give them an economic reason to stay, but you also need to give them a community reason to stay.
Yeah.
And I think the problem with West Virginia right now is that we've hit this tipping point where so many people have left that to attract and keep any of them back, it's going to be so difficult to do that because so many are already gone.
Yeah.
And we seem to just be like with these new bills that you mentioned passed with the trans rights and stuff. Like that seems to be just going further down the rabbit hole. I'm not really sure. Like they just like keep doing the wrong thing, and then they're like, "Why are they leaving?"
Well, and that's actually part of the reason I mentioned Arkansas earlier is because I literally just this morning read some great coverage of what's going on there, and like the Arkansas bill passed, and there's already like this max exodus of like people being like, I need to leave, I can't stay here. And of course, if X amount of people do that, and they bring their families with them, and they, I can't, I know. And you can't blame them. They're just trying to live their life, and they're just trying to get it all together. But that's, but I think, in terms of this kind of stuff, I think that's why a lot of people get frustrated.
Right. So I kind of want to pose this question to both of you.
Yeah.
Why do you guys think that like they're passing these bills, if not just for personal beliefs or preferences? You know, like
I think that there's a twofold answer to that. I think that there's one. It is a personal belief thing. I've read too many dissertations on why these bills have been sponsored by people that have sponsored them to know. That is a huge factor. Multiple of them referencing faith and that kind of stuff, which is kind of a frustrating argument because you can't really debunk that.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
I mean, not everyone believes the same thing.
Right, and at the same time, there's the idea of religious freedom in the United States, and part of religious freedom is being able to choose or not choose.
Yeah.
If you want to follow a certain set of precepts. But I think that another big thing that informs this is that national media is very focused on it because it's a very helpful issue for it's a very helpful social issue for people that don't have a lot of policy solutions to problems that people face. I think it's very scapegoaty, just to be frank about it. And
that makes for a good article.
Yeah, and that's just it. People get like, I think there's this oogling factor almost of like, ooh, these people that are just so different from me, but that's not really the case.
No, it's not.
It's really.
I can answer if you want to.
Oh yeah,
go ahead.
You basically answered it. I just want to say I think the people who do it are completely selfish. They do it for selfish reasons, their personal beliefs. I mean, who are they truly hurting? If they're like, if it's the sports thing, it's like, oh, my kids are in sports and they have an upper leg. Do they really? Is there any instance where they're like, oh, this had an upper leg, and they're putting down other children? Is there?
Because they've been competing now for decades.
Yeah, and truly, if you teach your children to be accepting, even if they did beat them in sports, wouldn't they be like, that's okay, because the other people are happy? Wouldn't you be happy because other people are happy?
Well, no, I hate losing, but
Well, I hate losing too. But if I lost,
but yeah,
I wouldn't be like,
right.
oh, it's because this. I would be like, I need to better myself, not because someone else.
Exactly.
It's just really infuriating.
It's so ironic too that the people who sponsored these sort of beliefs, claiming to be like super patriotic and American, and like saying like that's not like the American way or whatever, you know, when like portraying that the American way is this Christian.
Well, I mean there's a long history of that in the United States.
I get it.
It's been very like that is kind of the quote unquote roots of the nation, but at the same time, I think that there's a certain sect that likes to pretend like the things that we've done are not things that we've done because it's convenient, you know, like the genocide of Native Americans and slavery, you know, it like to pretend that these things did not happen. And I mean, frankly, the repression of queer people all over. That's just a thing that's very systemic. And I think that for me, a lot of the frustration doesn't come from like a refusal, or it comes from a refusal to like even acknowledge that as a baseline.
Yeah.
Like we have to be on the same page, and to not acknowledge that history is is very willfully ignorant of our own history.
It's definitely been a American tendency for us to just sort of sidestep our history. You know?
No, it's fine.
Really,
we did a genocide.
Yeah.
But it's fine, but it's not.
It gives me people act like this. It gives me no hope. And then I realized that we did own slaves once. Now we don't realize that's bad. So maybe we'll realize that this is bad. You know, treating people like this is bad. Not being accepting is bad.
Right.
You know, I mean, they're really just asking for the bare minimum. If you really think about it, they're just asking for the bare minimum.
Really,
people are just asking for the bare minimum, and they're not getting it, and it's sad.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. You know, one thing that I would like to shout out locally right here is the Historical Society, the local one for Greenbrier County. You know, Nora Bensky is the executive director, and she's doing an incredible job of like looking into the Greenbrier County's past in terms of like what was it like for the people that were at the bottom of everything. You know, what was it like for the slaves? What was it like for the people that didn't have money? They're doing great work up there. The exhibits are they're pretty universally worth seeing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them are currently being offered online if you don't feel comfortable going in person.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like just to walk into there and see like they have these massive layout displays of all of this like history of Greenbrier County. That's just it's very, very interesting, and it puts everything into a new perspective. But it's a more fair and accurate perspective than we had before.
You always got to see both sides.
Yeah.
Well, I think that how do I word this? I don't know. Like, I'm hopeful that things get better. You know, like if we look, there's been a lot of progress with civil rights and trans rights and basically universal human rights. Since the Civil War. And I think now that we see these bills coming up, it's natural to think that, since this is just what we're exposed to right now, it's easy for us to think that it's reverting back to that. It's definitely not a step forward, but I think that, like you mentioned earlier, these people from, was it Arkansas that passed that crazy legislation? Like you said, people are moving away from there, so I think that there's this general societal agreement that stuff is it's juvenile, and we've moved past that.
Well, I think that there's a lot of direct comparison you can make right now, and I've read a lot of direct comparison between what trans rights look like right now as compared to gay rights about 15 years ago or so. I think that there's a lot of when you really look at the things that the people that are against this stuff say, it's the same arguments. It's all the same stuff, but it's just slightly reworded and it's slightly different.
To be made politically correct.
Exactly. And, if you actually want to look at what science says, because that's one of the buzzwords that a lot of, bigots like to use is scientifically. But actual science, if you go, there was a letter that came out kind of recently from basically every major psychological association that was like, don't do this. Don't ban this stuff because you're only doing harm. You're interfering with primary care, and it's very I don't know, it's very frustrating to watch.
You're only hurting people. You're not really helping anyone. So
All right, Bobby. Well, dude, it's awesome having you on here. This is a really enjoyable one. I like talking about this.
It's a good vibe. I like what y'all are doing.
I know. I definitely dig our setup.
And I'm supposed to get at name How did you name the podcast?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we kind of should have thought about this before we decided on the name, but
Yeah.
Stage on the Stage.
Yeah.
Right now, you can't see it in frame right now, but like behind us here, there's this sort of weird stage on a stage.
We're on a stage right now.
On a stage.
But this is another
Another
stage,
stage.
on top of the stage.
So now there's the stage, and then there's the stage that's on the stage,
Yeah.
but we're next to the stage that's on the
Yeah.
stage.
And then we
Okay.
recorded the first 3 podcasts on
Yeah.
top of that.
Yeah.
And then we just like moved over here because it was like easier to get everything set up, and it just kind of stuck
So now you should be the stage
beside a stage.
beside another stage.
On a
Still on a
stage.
stage.
Still on a stage podcast. It might get a little unwindy, but you could just like anagram it.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you for coming on, man. Hope to have you on again sometime soon. You know,
Yeah.
some crazy event comes on, we can have you come on and prove everyone wrong. Right?
I'll let you know.
Or fact checker.
I like to do that kind of stuff. It's literally what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for walking. Thank you for watching. All right. Bye bye.
Thanks for walking.